This is the first weekend that the IMSA GTP class has ever been here on this new downtown streets of Detroit circuit. John Hennek is the technical director for BMW Team RLL. What a challenge from a technical perspective, right? Coming into a brand new track that you don't have any data on.
Yes.
I'm very curious how you approach getting prepared, set up, things of that nature coming into a new circuit.
Yeah, so well, we're somewhat fortunate that our teammates run an IndyCar, which did run here last year. So we can kind of look at comparisons between Long Beach, which we both run at, and what we think will happen to Detroit. So we have some data to try to gain a direction on certain big ticket items. Unfortunately, a lot of stuff doesn't transfer from a sports car to an Indy car, but it can kind of give you a little bit of heads up on what to expect, what were the challenges, at least compared to Long Beach. But really, we do a lot of our testing on simulator in Munich. So BMW does the testing for us, and so we had 2 full days of simulator driving for all the drivers coming here. Again, you know, without having anything to compare it against, you're taking a lot for granted that the maps are correct on the simulator and everything is correct. There's no way to correlate because we don't have data from being here. So we try to base some of it in reality based on what the IndyCar team did, and then go, okay, this is what the simulator did, and try to kind of converge on a best guess, you know, to start. So.
Further complicating things is the fact that it's a pretty compressed weekend. It's not like you get a ton of time out there to go correlate your data.
Right. That is the problem. You know, fortunately, we do have a lot of time here, practice-wise, but it happens really quickly, right? So we don't have time to do big setup changes in between sessions. So really, our baseline package has got to be close. Ride heights, third spring gaps, stiffnesses, things like that, you know, we can change in session. But geometries, you know, roll bars, things like that, I think our baseline Long Beach-ish package with a little bit of adjustment is probably going to be right. So you just hope that that's going to be close enough, and then you can kind of just work on the things you can change in session and go from there. But yeah, it's going to be a little stressful, you know, because, you know, you have to, the other thing that happens is the track evolves, right? So it's very difficult to say, well, this change actually did something, right? The track just got better anyway. So I don't think you'll make a bad change in the first session. The track will just keep evolving. So you really have to keep that in mind and realize that you don't want to keep going around in a circle, things like that. So,
what are some common threads in a street course setup? You mentioned you thought that the baseline from Long Beach might carry over here to Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we think our damping strategy is probably pretty close. So we don't plan on changing a lot with that. The suspension geometry, the kinematics, we think we're probably where we want to be. So really, the big thing for us is ride quality. We're predicting it's going to be much rougher here than Long Beach, which really is kind of not a very rough street course. So based on IndyCar data, it looks like, you know, the biggest thing is they're aerodynamic cars, right? Ride height is a huge difference. But stiffness and mechanical grip is a huge difference, and these are all very slow speed corners where aero, it doesn't matter how slow we're going, aero is still important, but it's less important on something like this where it's such slow speed corners. So really what we need to be able to do here is be able to stop the car, get it rotated, and put the power down aggressively.
It's a real technical challenge. Fingers crossed for you guys this weekend.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Connor De Phillippi will be piloting this beautiful BMW GTP car with Nick Yellowly this weekend, the number 25. You're about to go on your track walk. We know that a lot of work goes in on the front end on a sim side, but what can you pick up about a brand new circuit for you guys when you go out and walk this track?
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, we all have some simulator laps this last few days, and last week we were spending a lot of time in there trying to get some of the basics down, watch a lot of video preparing for the weekend. But certainly we want to observe any type of track changes that happened from last year to this year based on just obviously visual, and really just try to start picking up on visual cues, because these type street courses, you have a few braking boards here and there, but generally you start relying on a lot of other visual references, so trying to pick up on a few of those that you can use going into your first practice session.
Do you talk to Graham or any of the other IndyCar guys on the team who have raced here before to get a couple pointers?
I've talked to actually Colton Herta, and it's funny because generally when I come into a new track, I don't like to go into the weekend with too many preconceived ideas of how you're supposed to do something. I find it actually more beneficial just to go out there and freestyle, do your own and figure it out yourself. Obviously you can watch a few things and take a few mental notes, but I find going into a track without too many preconceived ideas on how to do something usually for me ends up being a better outcome, so that's what I've kind of done this weekend. It's
a super tight track, 1.7 miles, 9 turns. We've never seen multi-class racing here before, because when Pilot Challenge was here last year, that was GT4 only. We've got your GTP cars and some GT3, GTD cars as well. How do you think that's going to play out?
It's going to be chaotic for sure. There's going to be it's going to be very difficult to pass them. Generally, the GT cars, especially on traction, they're as good or even better than us sometimes because they're just softer. And the point and squirt between some of these corners, it's very short. So like you don't have a lot of time to get up through the gears and try to get alongside of them. So there's going to be a very limited amount of passing. So trying to make your move, being decisive. Obviously, all the cars are pro, so that's a big benefit. So at least we have that predictability factor. We know what they're going to do, or at least we think we do. So that's going to be obviously helpful, but definitely qualifying is going to be huge. And I think traffic, when you time your pit stops with the traffic, all those little details are going to play a lot more of a role than what we can do behind the wheel. So yeah, the pressure's on us, but also on the team.
And you've spent your time in GTs over the years, so you probably know most of the guys that are out there in the GT cars. You know their tendencies, right?
Definitely, and I think those will probably be conversations we'll have after practice and talk to some of those guys. Be like, hey, like, what is it like when we passed you here? Yeah. What is it like when we passed you there? Equally, as drivers, passing them and then also staying behind them a few laps and trying to analyze data and be like, okay, am I actually losing time when I try to force the issue and pass them? Am I gaining time? So try to start putting some numbers on some of those things, and will help you with your decision making in the race and hopefully be as efficient as you can.
It'll be an interesting weekend, that is for sure, here on the streets of Detroit. First time ever we've seen the GTP cars here compete on this course.